Most dynasty managers don't realize this, but your rookie draft isn't won in the first round. It's where you can actually set your team back years. I've seen people destroy contenders in one draft just by making a few common mistakes. If you've been hoarding picks for this year or next year, but you have no plan for how to use those picks, you could be ruining your team for years to come. So in this video, I'm breaking down the 5 biggest rookie draft mistakes and how to avoid them so you don't waste the most valuable asset in Dynasty. My name is Caleb and welcome to the Dynasty Edge HQ, where we help you take your teams from rebuilding to contending and winning championships for many years to come. And if you find anything in this video actionable or useful with your Dynasty team, I encourage you to subscribe down below and comment which mistake you've made or what ways you have been drafting well that's been helping your teams for years. I also want to mention that I'm going to be putting out a full rookie draft blueprint very soon, and you're really going to want that in a future video. So keep your eyes out for that, and a Discord might be in the works very soon. So mistake number 1 for your teams: drafting need instead of value. So many people look at their teams and they go, okay, I have a quarterback in the super flex. I have one quarterback. I have a couple running backs and some wide receivers. So no matter what, I'm going to draft a quarterback with my pick. And I believe that this is one of the biggest mistakes that you can make on your team. Rookie picks are actually liquid value assets. They're not just lineup fillers. A rookie pick doesn't just mean that he's going to be an absolute smash for years to come. There is always risk, but there's always value to be had. And so your roster is going to change in months. You could be I'm going to draft a quarterback right now that's going to fill a roster spot right now, but your team could change. Injuries can happen. There's so much that can happen over the course of the coming months and into the year. So if you're drafting purely on need, you're making a massive mistake. You should be drafting on value, because if you draft a running back because you need one or a quarterback because you need one, you could be making mistakes. So what I tend to do is I do value over situation over need. And I try to draft all my teams in that way. So sometimes when I'm within a tier or if I'm in a draft and everybody's drafting a particular position and I have a need at running back. But this year, for instance, in 2026, if you don't have the first overall pick, you might not be able to get a solid running back. And so if I have, the 1.05, I'm not going to be able to do that. So what would I do in that circumstance? Do I reach on a player like Jonah Coleman? Do I reach on other running backs? Or do I draft the valuable asset, which is probably going to be a wide receiver or Fernando Mendoza, knowing that that's the value of my pick and that's best for my team, even though I might have a need at the running back position. And so your roster should adjust to your draft, not the other way around. So understand that. Don't just draft for need, draft for value, and then fill in the holes later. You don't need to do that. Draft for value and then trade for need down the road. Okay, so another big mistake that people make is they overvalue landing spots. How many times have you heard, oh man, if a running back lands with the Chiefs, if a wide receiver lands with the Bills, everything's going to take off. And so many people make landing spots the absolute in their drafts. And I think that, yes, landing spot can be important. A good offensive situation is very important for players to go into. And I think you should take heed of that, be understanding of what that means. But prioritizing a player that was drafted way later over a player that was drafted, highly just because of the landing spot is not a successful draft strategy. And I've seen people over time overdraft players just because of a landing spot and seen it really wreck their teams from years to come. And so how many times have we seen, a wide receiver go to the Bills that everybody highly touts, and then it just didn't work out? And so I think so many times we have to really take a step back, find our tiers in our draft, and be able to draft within those tiers instead of drafting purely on landing spot. Where landing spot takes control in this, and where we can kind of understand and use landing spot is within a tier. If you have 3 players, let's say we have Carnell Tate, Mekhi Lemon, and Jordan Tyson, and they all get drafted by 3 different teams, and you're in that tier of the 1.02 to the 1.05. you can draft on landing spot with those 3 players if you want to. They're in the same tier. If that's the deciding factor of why you chose to draft one of those players, I think that's an instance that you can, take a player based on the landing spot. But don't just draft a player who gets to a landing spot that wasn't at a good pick or wasn't that good of a prospect. The draft is going to tell us a lot about these players. Where they are drafted is a big part of where we should be drafting them in their rookie draft. So keep track of that. Draft on value. Don't worry about, just the landing spot. Draft on talent, draft on value, and then work out the other things. If you end up with a Bills wide receiver, or you end up with a running back to the Seahawks or something like that, and you don't need that player, that's a great time to trade that player based on everyone being obsessed with that. So if you get a chance to draft one of those players later at the right value, that's a great player to go and then flip in the season or right before the season so that you can get things. So I think if you play the market right and you can use landing spots against other managers, it's a great opportunity to sell high on players that go to a landing spot that aren't the most talented that you can take advantage of. Okay, so mistake number 3 that I think people make is they treat picks like their players. They think the 1.03 equals whatever player, and that just is not the case. You cannot draft a player expecting that they're going to majorly produce for your team. Yes, they might be able to fill a hole for your roster long term, but that doesn't mean they're going to produce right away. How many times have we highly drafted somebody expecting that they were just going to explode, Ashton Genty, and then they just disappointed. Now, he had a decent rookie year, and actually, he had almost an exact rookie year to Bijan Robinson. But we expected that he was going to have a massive RB3 type of year, and he just didn't as a rookie. And so we need to understand that picks are not just players, and we need to understand that once you draft, the value becomes fragile. Picks are flexible, and so you can always move a pick. And once they become a player, the value is so much more volatile. And so I would say if you can move around picks, always be open to moving around picks, moving around within tiers. Don't just treat them like they are a certain player, like they are a set thing. Picks, their value goes up and down. Right now, the picks are just going up and up. I've actually seen so much more excitement about the 2026 draft, like I said in a previous video, that's going to happen, and it's just going to get more and more until the draft comes in a couple weeks. And so understand it that when you draft a player, that player's value is going to become more volatile. It could go up or it could go down a lot faster. And so it doesn't just equal players. You have to understand that the pick is its most valuable before you draft. So if you get a good offer for your pick, or you get a producing player that produces better than what that person you were going to pick is going to produce, I would take the person that's producing, or I would take the better deal. If you get a first and a second offered for just a first, depending on which first round pick it is, you might want to take that. So just understand that. Understand that picks don't always equal players. That's not how it works. Picks are always going to be more valuable or have a higher trajectory than a player for the most part. And so just understand that as you move forward in your thing. Okay, mistake number 4 is that people don't tier their board. They might just look at the rookie draft as all just a number of picks, and understanding that, hey, I'm going to pick this player at this. He is set in stone at number 3, or he is set in stone at number 4. If you're drafting off of a list, you're doing it wrong. If you're drafting off of some list that some creator said, it's going to be this player, you're doing it wrong. What you should be doing is tiering your players, putting them into specific tiers of value or of talent, and being okay picking all within that tier. For instance, one of the most famous tiers this year for the 2026 draft is pick number 2 through pick number 5. Typically, that's going to be Mendoza, Tyson, Tate, and Lemon. That's most likely going to be those players. So I am totally okay picking at 5 versus 2, because I know that all those players are within the same tier. So I'm okay with whoever lands at me at 5. So what I do in different drafts is I try to trade to the back of a tier. And by doing that, I get more value. Say if I started at the 1.02 and I got to the 1.05, but I gained an extra first round pick or gained an extra few picks just to move back for the same value of player that I think that's a win. And so sometimes people get so set on a particular player that they lose value in return. And so being able to move up and down in different tiers, I think, is a great way to take advantage of a draft and take advantage of where these players are and not just assigning them a specific pick value. And I think people so many times lose out on great value when they don't have their players in tiers. So put your players in tiers. If you have a list of players you're having an eye on, put them in tiers. Be like, hey, this player is in the same tier bucket as these other players. And then be okay drafting within that tier. I think it's going to set you up for success. And I think it's a big mistake that other managers make that they don't do because they don't plan for the future and plan to be within certain tiers. So understand that. And then if you're at the back of a tier and you're not liking it, trade into another tier and then get some value into that. I think that's a great way. And speaking of trades, mistake number 5 is not having a trade plan. One of the things that I do is in every draft, I go through every other manager's team in that league, and I know what their strengths and their weaknesses are. I also know that most people typically draft based on need versus based on value. And so what I do is I have a trade plan for every manager at my pick. And I go, okay, I can trade my pick to this manager. I'm going to at least offer that manager certain offers that I know that I could possibly get based on knowing that they might want to draft a player in that range. And what I do is I either wait until the night before the draft or during the draft to offer those players those picks. And so having a plan to be able to do, also having a plan of, hey, if I want to move back out of this pick, what am I willing to take? It takes away so much of the stress of in the moment. Let's say you don't have, you only have 90 seconds to make your pick. That's a long stress. That's like a stressful time to be able to make moves and stuff. And sometimes people aren't responsive. And so if you have a faster draft, having a plan is going to save you so much time. It's going to save you so much headache in trying to make a move in the time that you have. And even if you have a long time for your draft pick, I think that it's so important to have a trade plan, have potential partners laid out, have values that you're willing to take for each player and for each one of your picks, what you might be willing to move up or even out of the entire draft into the next draft for. Having specific trades already made up, using a calculator, not using a calculator, but just having something that you can do to have a plan and have it laid out. Think of all the GMs out there. If we're thinking like a GM on the Dynasty Edge, think of the GMs in the actual NFL draft. They have an actual plan for everything. They have a plan for what players they're going to trade for, what moves they're going to make, what are their major needs, what are the value here. And you hear all the time that a player drops and drops and drops and a team selects him because he's so valuable. They can't just like pass up on a player that valuable. So think of it the same way. Draft for value, have a trade plan, and go forward with that. The more prepared you are, the better off you're going to be for your drafts. If you found and avoid all of these mistakes, you're going to find that you're going to start drafting better. You're going to find that your teams are getting better. You're going to start dominating your leagues. You're going to see that the other teams are going to be like, wait, what is he doing? Why is he hitting on some of these things? Why is he always coming out of these drafts on top? And they're going to take notice, and they're going to notice that you're going to start taking over in your leagues and being the contender that everybody looks forward to. So keep that in mind. In the next few videos, I'm going to be giving you strategies not only for the draft video is coming up very soon. Be tuned in for that because it's going to change your life and your teams with that draft video. But I'm going to be just continuing with strategy in ways that you can get the edge in your league so that you can start winning for years to come. If you got anything from this video that was actionable or just helpful for you in making your teams go forward, think about subscribing down below. Comment what ways you are going forward in your drafts, what draft strategies you're using. I would love to hear it. Any trade questions that you have. And also let me know if you think I should start that Discord and have things that you guys can be commenting and being in community together. I can't wait to see you guys in the next video. And yeah, let's get these drafts and let's nail them in the future.